Despite just having the best year of his young career, this Patriot is facing some pretty serious trade rumors that are only continuing to heat up as we inch closer and closer to the start of Patriots training camp. Welcome into Pats with Pete. I am your host, Peter Gigliotti, your number one spot for Patriots content. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on now YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts as well. And ladies and gentlemen, today is a very exciting day. No, not because of what exactly we're talking about, and not because anything particularly interesting happened with the team, but because your boy got a little package in the mail. I never get in-person mail anymore. In today's day and age, I only ever see DMs and emails. So getting some real physical mail was exciting, and also exciting because it brought me a jersey. A 2021 away jersey of Jakobi Meyers. I got this on Depop for $16. For those of you listening who can't see it, it's real. It's got the stitching. This isn't the new Fanatics print-on stuff. We're not going to diss anybody too hard. But look, we're here to talk about a wide receiver not named Jakobi Meyers. We are here to talk about Kayshon Boutte. If you have paid any attention to the team this offseason, it should not be surprising that Kayshon Boutte has had some very serious trade rumors floating around his name for the last couple of months, and it's not hard to see why. The Patriots made two very significant wide receiver additions in trading a first-round pick for Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown and making a pretty significant financial investment in Romeo Doubs as well. Now, Boutte, the 24-year-old wide receiver, has really stood out over the last couple of seasons as a reliable downfield threat, and last season, the clear number 2 option behind Stefon Diggs. In 2025, Boutte racked up 33 catches for 551 yards and 6 touchdowns. Again, not really surprising to see why teams would be inquiring about the young Patriots wide receiver, because can you really blame them? I don't think anyone who's watched him play football can say that he has really reached his ceiling. Let's go all the way back to his time at LSU, where he had a ton of upside coming out of college. As a freshman, he racked up 45 catches for 735 yards and 5 scores. He was the talk of the town. Everyone was projecting him to be a future first-round pick with the expectation that he was going to continue that amazing production. However, over the next 2 seasons, he dealt with an ankle injury and coaching overturn as Brian Kelly was introduced, and he ended up becoming a 6th-round pick in 2023 to the New England Patriots, a team that historically over the last decade has not been good at drafting wide receiver talent. So it's safe to say that after a very uneventful rookie season and a sophomore training camp where he was discussed as being a potential cut candidate, that many fans were pleasantly surprised with how he took a step forward in his sophomore season. In year 2, 43 catches for 589 yards in his first season with Drake May. That's a relationship that is very important and something we'll continue to talk about later in this episode. And then in year 3, he only continued to build on that momentum. As we said, a very productive season in his first year under Josh McDaniels. He emerged as a more consistent deep threat, scoring 3 more touchdowns and having pretty similar receiving stats despite having 22 less targets in year 3 than he did in year 2. Now, all of this sounds great, but it does raise the big question. Why would the Patriots trade him? It doesn't make sense for New England to move off of someone who seems to be a young budding talent. So let's get into both sides of the arguments for trading wide receiver Kayshon Boutte, the pros, the cons, and what the Patriots should do, and where I stand on the entire situation. But before we get into it, if you enjoy Patriots content just like this, built by a fan for the fans, make sure you are subscribed, you are following, you have the notifications turned on so you don't miss any future content. But with that being said, let's get into the argument against the Patriots trading Kayshon Boutte. Now, we're going to start with the chemistry and the team history. Of course, as we said, the Patriots, for all extensive purposes, have been horrible at drafting wide receivers in the last decade. Tyquan Thornton, N'Keal Harry, just two massive swing and misses off the bat. You finally get a guy who's got some promise and you want to trade him. After 3 seasons in New England, one of the only receivers on this roster who has built a strong relationship with Drake May. You don't get that with every receiver who walks through the door. As cliche as it is, that is a bigger deal than people are willing to admit. When it's 3rd and long, the down and distance are not in your favor, and your quarterback needs to look to someone that they trust, that they have that built-in rapport with. That is Kayshon Boutte for Drake May. Of course, there's also the extremely exciting offensive potential of this trio: A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs, and Kayshon Boutte. When you talk about Kayshon Boutte and his role in the Patriots offense, the word redundant gets thrown around a lot, and not for the wrong reason. He is primarily a deep threat wide receiver. A.J. Brown primarily excels at being a deep threat receiver, far better of a one than Kayshon Boutte is. But even with that, the talent that Kayshon Boutte has kind of makes you think, wouldn't you like to keep him around and have him bully cornerback 2s and 3s with A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs, requiring the best of the opposing defenses? A guy like Kayshon Boutte, who has shown to be productive despite a decreased snap share, a guy who finished 4th in yards per catch in 2025, you could argue that the lineup of A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs, and Kayshon Boutte is one of the best wide receiver trios in all of football. That ceiling and individual potential of Kayshon Boutte is very exciting. A lot of people, myself included, see Boutte as a developing talent, someone who hasn't quite reached their ceiling, someone who still has some work to be done and some refinements to be done in his overall game. He hasn't reached that ceiling. I think a lot of Patriots fans don't want to dump a guy who's an ascending talent. He's on the rise, let alone a homegrown ascending talent who has a rapport built in with your quarterback already, who could be a very effective wide receiver 3 in this offense. A guy who not once but twice has beat one of the NFL's best cornerbacks in Derek Stingley, and mind you, in a very pivotal moment too, in the divisional round against the Texans with that ever-famous one-handed grab through the snow. There's a lot of love for Kayshon Boutte in New England, so it's not surprising to see so much kickback on the idea of trading him away. But with that being said, there are some pretty significant reasons that the Patriots should trade Kayshon Boutte, and in my opinion, these are reasons that cannot just be ignored for the love of a player. First off, Kayshon Boutte is heading into a contract year. Unfortunately, as much as I would like this to not be the situation, players really do have to look out for their best interest. This isn't Madden. You can't just throw up the best lineup out there and expect a statistical explosion of an offense. You have to think about the individuals, their families, their financial situations, the future of their careers when you talk about trading players. Kayshon Boutte is heading into a contract season where he is expected to have a significantly smaller snap share and target share. For a guy who's about to play the most important season of his young career, don't you think that you'd want to be in a scenario where you can show that you are worth investing money into and worth investing capital into? If he plays for the Patriots this season, it's more likely than not that he's not going to have a very great statistical season, and it's going to hurt him in the long run when we come around to contract negotiation season. We also talked about his role in the Patriots offense and how he lines up schematically. As we said, his role as the primary deep threat is gone. That's over and done with. Kayshon Boutte is unfortunately just a little bit redundant in the Patriots offense schematically, especially when you talk about Kyle Williams. The Patriots have been very open about their excitement and love for Kyle Williams, that they think he can be a deep threat and more, someone who can be more effective in the intermediate game, more so than Kayshon Boutte because of his physical skill set. If the Patriots think that Kyle Williams can become a better deep threat than Kayshon Boutte, then why keep a guy around who probably isn't going to re-sign with you in free agency, since he's going to go look for an opportunity where, again, he'll have a higher target share, a higher snap share, a more prominent role in an offense, as well as a more lucrative contract when you have your deep threat already built in with A.J. Brown and the excitement and prospect of another effective downfield threat in Kyle Williams. on a rookie contract. Like, to me, the idea of Kayshon Boutte getting a contract extension is non-existent. I don't think the Patriots would offer him one. And as it goes for him getting another deal in New England, if he was offered one, I don't think the financial compensation, the dollar amount, would be even close to what Kayshon Boutte is hoping to get in return. So for the Patriots, you can get ahead of this, get a little bit of return on investment for Kayshon Boutte by shipping him off to a team that would give you a 5th round, 6th round pick for a guy that is probably going to walk in free agency, and you'll end up getting nothing. So it's really the power of getting a late round draft pick versus getting nothing in return for Kayshon Boutte. And now that we understand both sides of this debate, I'm sure you're wondering, but Pete, where do you stand on this topic? And well, I've been on record and very open about the fact that I would hate to see Kayshon Boutte go. I agree with those that say he has a lot of potential in the NFL, that he is yet to reach his ceiling. But with that being said, as much as I would hate for it to happen, I think a trade involving Kayshon Boutte is inevitable. You just cannot ignore the fact that a trade would be better for Kayshon Boutte's career than a contract extension or another deal in New England. So there it is. I think Kayshon Boutte's going to be traded, but pump the brakes. Don't click off the episode just yet, because I think the Patriots should at least wait until the NFL trade deadline, reassess the situation then before actually pulling the trigger, because I think at best case scenario, Kayshon Boutte is a bigger part of your offense than you expected up to that point in the season. He's still making impactful plays, and he now has a higher trade value on the market than he did beforehand. And if you get to that midway point, the trade deadline, and you don't want to trade Kayshon Boutte anymore, you realize that he's a bigger part of your offense, the team is doing well, you want to keep him around for the postseason, then great. You do that, and you're glad you didn't trade him at the start of training camp. And at worst, if you wait until the trade deadline, he isn't being productive in the offense, and you get a similar return to what you would have gotten now, or a somewhat smaller return for someone that, again, you're probably going to get no return on if he walks in free agency, which I strongly expect him to do. I just think trading Kayshon Boutte at the start of training camp is a preemptive move that you don't really have to do. There's nothing urgently pressing you to get a deal done. Of course, if you wait, you're running the risk of him getting injured, but that's kind of how football works. I mean, you can't just base decisions around, well, he might get hurt, he might not, because then nothing would ever get done. People get hurt. That's just how it is. That's how it's played. I think if you wait until the trade deadline and you get more value out of the player himself, who the Patriots and myself probably agree on that he has a lot of talent and has a lot to give to a team despite a smaller target and snap share, I don't see any harm in doing that. Just wait until the trade deadline and then ship him off wherever you want. All of that to say, I wouldn't really be surprised if the Patriots did ship him off before the trade deadline. It could just happen. I mean, teams are looking and are going to be looking for more talent before the start of the season so they can get the guys to learn the playbook, get them integrated into the building, meet the guys, learn the offense, the whole shebang. And if someone gets hurt during training camp or a preseason game, a veteran wide receiver, Kayshon Boutte is all of a sudden going to be a much more enticing option. But in the end, I do have to echo the words of Albert Breer. I think the Patriots will do right by Kayshon Boutte. Let's play the audio now.
I think the plan all along has been to do right by Kayshon Boutte, and I think there was a realization when they went and traded for A.J. Brown. It's like, that's not only bringing another receiver into the room, that's bringing an X-receiver in, and that's what Kayshon Boutte was. And this, again, comes back to the climate within the building, and it was so good last year, and they had such a good thing, and do you want a guy who now is about to play the most important season of his life? Because this is where he gets the life-changing money, and you are basically screwing up his value. They've tried to do their best to find a new home for him. I've said it before. If somebody called them with a 5th round pick over draft weekend, he's gone. Those offers just weren't there. I do think eventually he's going to be somewhere else.
Great stuff from the great Albert Breer. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of Pats with Pete. I thank you for watching this long. Again, while you're here, if you enjoy Patriots content, make sure you are following, you are subscribed, you have the bell turned on, the notification bell, so you don't miss any of this Pats with Pete content. And while you're at it, follow the other socials. We're on TikTok, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter. It's all Pats with Pete. You look up Pats with Pete, I'll be there. And I'll be here again for another episode. Thank you for watching, and make sure to comment down below what you think about the Kayshon Boutte rumors.